Yep, welcome to the premier Square Table for the fall-winter season from Izaka Square Tables, hosted by Izaka Netherlands chapter and sponsored by Nuria. Before we start the actual presentation, some housekeeping rules. If you don't mind, please mute your microphone and stop sharing your video camera, and only unmute when allowed by the host. Today I'll be your host. My name is Ramzi Al-Masri. My email is ramzi.almasri@izaka.nl. So if you have any comments or suggestions about the webinars, please feel free to contact me as part of the committee. The committee's name are on the izaka.nl website. Also for the CPEs, please make sure that you have on Microsoft Teams the same first name and last name that you used for the registration. This presentation will indeed be recorded along with the slides. It might be released a couple of days later, but for the slides, we have to double check later on. If you need to have any questions, our speaker have asked tonight to leave them till the end of the presentation, and then of course you are always allowed to type your question on the chat box or use the raise hand, and then we will allow you to unmute yourself and start asking the questions. Normally I like to introduce the speaker, but our speaker today is very, very special, so I would like him to introduce himself. Stefan, over to you. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and take over the screen sharing.
No, thanks for the introduction. It's good to see that there is many people attending this session.
Yep.
I also see some ABN AMRO colleagues. Also happy to see that. Moment, I will share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me introduce myself. I'm Stefan Simonon, working in ABN AMRO. I'm currently head of Public Cloud Azure platform. Previously, I was involved in setting up continuous integration, continuous delivery processes within the bank. I got involved in implementing the right tools, software quality principles, and I studied physics in Eindhoven. Already have more than 20 years experience. I like learning. I like to have knowledge about the area I'm working in. So I also have some AWS and Azure cloud certifications, and this year I also have started to get certified on CISP, SISM and CRISC. And yeah, I have already talked about multiple events, and I'm looking forward to this session, and I'm also looking forward to the questions and the reactions you have. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them, put them in the chat or ask them after the session. I think it will take around 30 minutes, my session, and then we have plenty of time to do some good discussion. ABN AMRO, I don't think I need to tell about ABN AMRO. Probably all of you know about ABN AMRO Bank. It's good to know that although the bank is much smaller than it used to be, we still have a large IT department, 5,000 people working in IT. We have an agile way of working. We're moving to DevOps. And yeah, we are conducting a large digital transformation program, and the public cloud setup and the public cloud journey is part of it. Now, how did we come to a public cloud? So what I will do, I will first tell about the public cloud journey, the Azure platform teams we have, the responsibilities between the platform teams and the application teams, moving applications towards the Azure platform. And then I will explain how we deal with risk management, both for the platform teams and for the application teams, moving applications to the Azure platform as well. And I will summarize with some learnings, with some best practices. So if you conduct such kind of journey, not everything go fine. Errors are made during the journey, and it's all about learning and improving during the journey. So what was the cause for the public cloud? What was the driver for the public cloud setup? We used to have a fully on-premise platform. infrastructure was handled by a third party, and in the past, and I'm talking about 5-6 years ago, we faced long lead times for infra delivery, many departments involved, many approvals. It was manual processes, error prone, and it took long to get infrastructure. And once you got the infrastructure, there was also many errors in it. So at that point of time, it was decided to set up public cloud department, public cloud setup. We started with AWS and Azure. Some enthusiastic people, they gathered together and they were starting to set up a platform and migrating some applications to it. And the reasons for selecting a public cloud is that you can deliver IT faster, you can make use of components which are offered by AWS and Microsoft. And while using DevOps, you're also not dependent on other departments. Once you have a public cloud, once you have a DevOps team, the DevOps teams can act in a way that they're not dependent on other teams. So that's also a big advantage. And the fourth one is risk reduction, which is if you look to the CISP and the CISM theory, then it's always stated that if you want to reduce risk, if you want to manage your security the right way, you better can have a private cloud. And we have seen indeed that while moving to public cloud, there is increased risk because of multi-tenancy, because of internet-facing applications. But the public cloud vendors, the CSPs, they offer many good tools, many good capabilities to reduce risk. So it's also important that as a bank, as a customer, you use them the right way. And I will tell how we do that. So how did we start and where are we today? So as said, we started 5-6 years ago with some experiments, so some enthusiast teams. So we started with Azure and AWS. Over time, ABN AMRO senior management changed direction. So they moved from a multi-cloud strategy to a single cloud strategy. And they have chosen Azure as a single cloud. And currently the digital transformation is not only about moving applications from on-premise to Azure, but also the workloads currently residing on AWS, they are also moved to Azure. So in the end, we will have the main platform, which is Azure, and we expect that some workloads still remain on-premise environment. So the second phase was the technical proof. The first workloads, they were live in a successful way, and the people were happy. And then the management decided to invest more in public cloud. So a stronger technical foundation was built. And then in the third phase, then it became more serious. So next to setting up the platform, next to investments, also organizational changes are required to move to public cloud and to deal with public cloud, because the way of working in a public cloud differs from a traditional way of working. And you also need to integrate the public cloud with the on-premise environments, with the configuration management tools we have in the bank, with the monitoring tools. And at that point of time, also the DevOps journey started. So teams moving to Azure, they also moved from a traditional way of working to a DevOps way of working. And the last phase, and in that phase we are now, the public cloud is really the standard for innovation, and there is a public cloud on less strategy. So majority of applications will move to public cloud unless the application is not fit for cloud, or if the application will be decommissioned on a short notice. But the idea is that majority of the applications will move to public cloud. Now, how was the risk dealt with? So in the first phase, the people were just experimenting. Security risk, that was totally not important for them. So the only objective they had is setting up a platform and getting some workloads there. But the initial security setup that happened in the technical proof phase, in the second phase. And at some point of time, there were more and more applications moving to public cloud, and then you really need to have a mature security and risk management framework in place. So at some point of time, ABN AMRO senior management took a very wise decision to stop the migration of applications towards public cloud, and first some crucial security and risk management prerequisites had to be set up. So I think this was about 4 years ago. There was a freeze for applications moving to public cloud. I think that freeze took around 4 to 5 months. In that period, the public cloud platform teams were only investing in getting their security stuff implemented, and also the risk management stuff needs to be up and running, because on the one hand it's very handy, public cloud. It offers many useful capabilities, but if you do not manage your security risk well, then it also will lead to many threats, because of multi-tenancy, because of internet-facing applications. You need to know where your data resides. So the ABN AMRO Bank did some good investments to get the right security things in place. And after that happened, the migration was taken forward again. And in the current phase, I believe we have a good security and risk framework in place, and now it's a matter of continuously improving the processes. So, and that is the area where we are now in. So if you look now, I think we have around 350 applications running on Azure. It's around 30% of the total workloads, and we expect that they will continue to increase going forward. And also more and more critical applications are moving to public cloud. So it's not only the less critical applications. Okay, what's the working model? So we have Azure platform team, that team that makes sure that we take the vanilla services, the Azure vanilla services, we make them secure, we make them compliant, we make them scalable, and after that is done, then we offer the services to be consumed by the development teams, by the DevOps teams, and the DevOps teams, they are responsible for building, deploying, maintaining, and making their application secure. And also, if there is an incident in the evening or in the night, those teams are responsible for fixing those incidents. So it's you build it, you run it principle. And we have a tower in place, and that takes care of all kind of reporting. So we have in compliancy reporting in place. We have management information in place for teams which are incompliant, and the tower will remind these teams to fix their incompliances. And there is also senior management reporting. So if teams or if departments are not taking their responsibility, they will also be chased by the senior management. And the tower, that is a separate department checking these kind of things. And this is about lifecycle management. It's about anti-malware. It's about Azure incompliances. It's about application development vulnerabilities. So all kind of reporting is in place, and the tower is looking into that and taking action towards DevOps teams if they don't take the responsibility themselves. So How does the Azure Platform Service look like? So we have a landing zone. I will explain later about the landing zone. The landing zone is a set of environments according to scalable principles. And based on those landing zones, the teams can set up their environments. They can migrate their applications towards these environments. And via an FSCP portal, the FSCP, that is the ABN AMRO name of the department responsible for the platform, and they can order the services. So it's a portal. Once you click on one service, pipelines will be triggered, and all kind of services will be automatically provided. Once they are available in the catalog. So in Azure SQL, in Cosmos DB, all kind of VMs, those kind of services can be consumed via the Azure portal, and those kind of services will be made available via the platform team. Now then we have compliance monitoring in place. I will explain more about this later. And we also have teams who deliver business support, and business support, that is about resolving incidents, answering questions, helping teams migrating to Azure, helping teams in fixing their security issues. They take care of knowledge sharing sessions, best practice sessions. So this kind of help is available from the platform team. Now, how is the platform team set up? So we have a network team which delivers Azure on-premise connections, because it's also important that the public cloud Azure platform is connected to on-premise, and it's also connected in a secure way, and all kind of network patterns are available, and network security, the network, including the network security. That's one of the most important parts of the Azure platform of our public cloud setup. And then we have all kind of we have a few product enablement teams who offer complex product solutions, a VM, Azure SQL, databases, monitoring tools. So those teams they take the vanilla products and they harden it, they make it secure, and once that is done, they make it available in the catalog, and then development teams can provision them, can use the portal which I mentioned to provision the components. Now we're also working with containers. There is teams using containers on Kubernetes. We have a separate Kubernetes team based on AKS. AKS is the Azure Kubernetes service. And then we have a platform enablement team, and that is offering identity access management solutions based upon Azure AD, all kind of monitoring solutions. They integrate the environment with all kind of tools. The most important one is ServiceNow, our tool which we use for configuration management, but also for issue management, for registering risks and all kind of other security issues. And an important capability is also the tools which our SOC teams use for security monitoring and for security alerting. This team provides tools to our SOC team so that the SOC team can monitor all kind of security things. Now, then we have policies in place, and I will tell more about these policies later. There is a separate team making the right policies. I will come back on this team later. And also we have an operations team, a security operations team, which ensures that the right compliance reporting is in place. And also this I will come back on later. Now there is a team which provides all kind of accelerators. Those are development patterns, generic solutions, infra as code patterns, which can be reused by application development teams. So next to the normal help which I just mentioned, we also provide accelerators, which development teams can use to move to Azure. And I already explained about the business support for teams moving to Azure. So if a new platform feature is delivered. So what is required? Because I said we take some vanilla product, we harden it, we make it secure, we make it available. But when I said that, I was not entirely complete, because also all kind of risk checks need to be handled. So what checks are required to release new features? And this is applicable not only for the platform team, but it's also applicable for teams moving applications towards public cloud. The first thing is a PIA. It's a privacy impact assessment. So the data is checked, the sensitivity of the data is checked. All kind of questions are asked about it, and once there is confidential data, once there is sensitive data or critical data, the team will be asked to implement the right security controls. So the PIA that is for the platform team is less relevant, because we only deliver environments, and we deliver a database framework, but the applications which make sure that the data is put in the database and the data is maintained, that is done by the application development teams. So this PIA is mostly applicable for application development teams. We have some privacy data in our Active Directory, but those is mostly data about our employees. So it's less relevant for us than for the application development teams. Now, then we have a Schrems law, and the Schrems law is saying that data which we maintain, which we produce, that they must stay within the European boundary. And then you could think of, okay, we make sure that the data stays in a database which is hosted in Europe, but that is not sufficient, because we also have teams working in India, and also these teams, they are not allowed to access the data, and also Microsoft, even while the data is in Europe, Microsoft people in USA, they are not allowed to access this kind of data, and it's even going further, because data is encrypted, there is encryption keys, and those keys, if you have access to these keys, you have access to the data. So also, it needs to be thought of how to deal with these kind of encryption keys. So this law, this popped up a few years ago, and because of this law, also migrations towards Azure containing customer data, critical data, was also put on hold for a few months to figure out how to deal with the Schrems law. But a Schrems assessment, that's also very important check which needs to be done. The third one is material assessment. So a material assessment is once a critical service is delivered in public cloud, then the regulators need to be notified. The ECB, the European Central Bank, the DNB, the Dutch Netherlands, and the Dutch National Bank, they need to be notified, and that is called a material assessment. The most important one for us, it's a security assessment. It's a self-assessment by the product owners. So there is a set of standard questions, and those need to be answered initially by the product owners, and also proof need to be collected to make sure that the right things are done. And that is something the teams, both in the platform but also in the application development teams, they need to take care of that. And important, the biggest one is the risk assessment. That's done via our CISO department, via our security department. We call it a SEA, and security engineering advice. We call it an ABN AMRO. And then the people of the CISO department, they will do threat modeling, they will do all kind of checks, and that is a deep assessment, it occurs often that all kind of risks pop up out of this assessment. It's a very important one, the risk assessment. And the DNB risk list, that is something for SaaS applications, software as a service. This is not relevant for us, but if there is an application development team which makes use of a software as a service, then a DNB risk list need to be filled in as well. Now, all these data, they are collected, they need to be discussed with all kind of departments, risk departments, legal departments, security departments. All kind of approvals need to be taken, and then they need to be approved in a COP. A COP is a Cloud Approval Board. So if we release a new feature, or if an application is planning to move to Azure, a Cloud Approval Board needs to approve that, and then all these documents, they need to be collected, and they need to be made available for the regulators as well, because we need to show that we are in control. We need to show that we adhere to the rules which the regulators have defined. Now, once this approval is received, once a feature is delivered, or once the application has moved towards public cloud, then also business usual checks need to be done. Then the first of is the security assessment. It's the same as mentioned earlier. There's an assessment which needs to be done on a yearly basis. The product owner of the product is responsible for that. Now then we have also audit departments, both internal and external audits. So once in a while audits are done, and we need to cooperate, and also all kinds of issues can pop up out of these audit issues, out of these audits. And the third one is red team assessments, and that is department within our CISO department. And they do all kind of penetration testing, and they simulate all kind of hacks. And no, it can occur that also issues pop up out of these assessments. So we have done a red team assessment a few months ago. Luckily, no major issues popped up out of that, but that is also something which happens once in a while. An internal red team assessment. And then what we have within ABN AMRO, we have a SCRC framework has been developed to identify risk. Now, what is an SCRC framework? Now, an SCRC framework, that is a dedicated standard for cloud, for IaaS, for PaaS, for SaaS solutions, that has been developed by our CISO department in cooperation with risk departments, in cooperation with the platform departments. It's a very important activity, and if you're planning to move to public cloud, then you need to make sure that you have such kind of standard, because there is lots of standards, lots of rules which are also applicable for an on-premise environment, but there is also lots of standards which are more applicable or only applicable for cloud environments. So you need to have such kind of standard. Now, the ultimate goal is to show that we are able to show proof that we are in control. There is a distinction based upon CA ratings. CA stands for confidentiality, integrity, availability, and an application having a very sensitive data that has, of course, needs other controls than an application which only has public data. So based upon the CA rating, there is a division in standards required. And then these standards they are defined for data protection, admin access, all things you can think of. But I mentioned just a few here. Now, how does the security framework look like? I'm not going to explain everything here. So for sandboxes, there is a separate framework. Encryption is very important. Routing to internet is something we need to take care of. Web application firewall is mandatory for majority of the applications. Everything in development needs to be handled as code via pipelines, also infrastructure, infra as code. Let me see. Yeah, what is also important is tagging. So resources which are provisioned, they need to be tagged. And that means that the owner needs to be, a resource needs to be owned by somebody, by department. And we enforce that tagging is done. Because if there are resource provisioned, there is no owner. Yeah, what if there is a vulnerability, of what if lifecycle management needs to be done on that resource? Then yeah, somebody needs to be responsible for that. And as a company, as an organization, you must know who's responsible for which resource. Okay, so and I move to the next page. And this SCRC, yeah, it's not only for security vulnerabilities. It's not only technical stuff. It's also about service management. So all kind of monitoring need to be in place. Disaster recovery needs to be taken care of. Lifecycle management is a very important one, because on an on-premise environment, yeah, teams are used to get extended support, but you know, Microsoft at some point in time says that version will be deprecated and you need to use the new version. Then teams do not have a choice, yeah? So they need to follow the lifecycle management rules from the CSP, from the provider. And also security monitoring is a very important one. Security alerts. We have close collaboration with our SOC department to make sure that they have the right tooling, that the right alerting is in place, but also that the right follow-up on certain alerts is in place. So that is also something which is described in this security framework. So we take a risk-based approach. It's also important to mention. So we look to the value of the asset, the importance of the asset. We look to the threat. Is it a threat which is very much applicable, or is it very less applicable? We look at the vulnerability. We look at what kind of mitigation options are in place. And then if you define a risk, and probably all of you know that, that's dependent upon the impact and the probability. And yeah, this is used to assess and define the risk, and also to define, to calculate the severity level of the risk. Now, security blueprint approach is also part of this framework. So as said, you have multiple options when moving to public cloud. You can move to an IaaS or a PaaS or a SaaS, and the lower in the stack, the more responsibility is with the CSP provider, with Microsoft. For example, the data centers, the facilities, yeah, that's a full responsibility of Microsoft, but the internal network or middleware. So middleware, for example, in a SaaS solution, the provider is responsible for it, but in an IaaS setup, the ABN AMRO bank is responsible for it. So based upon the service model we take, the responsibilities can differ. But if you look, mostly the higher in the stack, data and keys is always an ABN AMRO responsibility. The higher in the stack, the ABN AMRO will be more responsible. And the lower in the stack, the platform and Microsoft will be more responsible. And based upon the responsibilities, based upon the risks identified, based upon the value of the assets, then all kind of controls are defined. And then teams move to Azure. They need to make sure that in their software solution, also security controls are implemented, designed and implemented. And that is also looked after when an application is moving towards Azure. So once we have all done these kind of things, then we have a process for identifying risk. And then once risks are identified, yeah, there is multiple options how to deal with that risk. So we have avoid, mitigate, accept. And there's a fourth option, transfer. But taking insurances we don't do in our department. So that's why I have not written down it here. So the first one is avoid. So there is certain risk for a feature. And then the most easy one to manage is just avoid, and just not provide the feature in the catalog. Now that happened 2 times. I think there was one storage solution which was not secure enough. So we told Microsoft, you need to make some improvements in that solution. And once the improvements are there, we do a risk assessment again, and then once improvements are implemented and approved, then we will make it available in the catalog. But once not, we will make it not available. Just avoid. But majority of the issues are mitigated within ABN AMRO. So we have low risk appetite within ABN AMRO. So protecting the customer data. Preventing hacks, that is more important in most of the cases than releasing a new application or releasing a new feature in a quick way. But of course there are cases in which some risk can be accepted. What you often see is that risk is sometimes accepted for a development environment, but not for a production environment. But we also see cases where acceptance happens for applications moving to production. But majority of the risks within ABN AMRO are mitigated, and in all cases it's very important to update the administration. So risks issues they are administrated in ServiceNow, in the GRC model of ServiceNow, and that is our risk register for all kind of risks and all kind of security issues. In the Azure platform, we have implemented a secure context, and that help in managing risk. I will show that now. So what's a secure context? A secure context consists of a landing zone. I already explained a little bit about it. A landing zone is a set of tools, set of environments, which can be delivered in an automated way. There is tools like Network Watcher and Logic App available to check all kind of network stuff and to check all kind of integrations with other tools. But the strong part of this landing zone that there is all kind of automation in place, which makes sure that based upon an application ID, the right team is responsible for all those environments. And what is also very strong is that all kind of policies are defined outside the platform, so to say, and development teams, they can provision the Azure resources via infra as code, via Azure native tools like ARM templates or Bicep or Terraform, which is a cloud agnostic tool. But via policy, they are enforced to be compliant. So, for example, within ABN AMRO, only resources in Western and North Europe are allowed. So if a team wants to provision a VM out of China, that will not be allowed via the policy, and then that will be blocked. So and more of these policies are in place, also for each and every product. And this is a very strong mechanism to manage risk, because many risks will be prevented by this. And you have 2 policy effects. That is a deny mode. Then the deployment is broken. You cannot deploy unless compliant. So in this Chinese VM situation, the VM out of China, that will be blocked. The program will not be able to provision that VM. But you also can put a policy in audit mode. Then the VM can be provisioned from China, but then the developer gets a warning. Hey, that VM is from China. You're not allowed to do it. You get and then some risk. So some risk issue is assigned to that team. I will explain about that later. And then some of you might have the questions. Yeah, but why don't you put everything on deny? Because then you don't have any issues. We can do that, but if you put everything on deny, then developers will have less freedom, and then it will be more difficult for developers to to develop code and to deliver software to production. So we need, if you do risk management well, one of the main challenges is to find the right balance between developer freedom and increased time to market versus security. And yeah, that is not an easy task, so to say. And within ABN AMRO, there are cases which cause many discussions for this, and I'm sure that this discussion will happen in many companies. Moving forward, so I explained about the platform features, but also when applications are moving towards Azure, what is required? Now, they also need to do a CAP approval, similar to platform. I already have explained that. They need to adhere to the Azure policies, which are defined by the platform team and which are explained on an earlier sheet. And then there is also all kind of DevOps controls in place. So I will explain about the second and the third one in the coming sheets. So how do we get a full compliance view? So there will be all kind of requirements in place. So our platform teams, they collect the requirements. They will collect that from the SCRC, which I have explained a few sheets ago. Here you see some examples. And that is the major source for the requirements. There is also sometimes some requirements from Microsoft. Sometimes developers have some requirements, but majority of the requirements come from the SCRC framework. So once we have these requirements, we need to define the instruments to follow up. Now that will be handled the majority via Azure policy, which I already explained about. And Azure policy, that is some JSON, that is some programming in JSON format, and all kind of policies can be defined per product. But the policies we define are based upon the SCRC framework. That's very important. That based on the requirements, the right policies are being defined and implemented. Then the third one, so once a team is making an Azure application, once a team is deploying their application towards Azure, they can see what kind of incompliances they have. So then you get such kind of dashboards. You get a compliance state. In this state, this team has 93.8% compliance, compliancy, and then it's also stated which things are non-compliant. So there is very detailed information provided towards the development teams about compliancy, and that is all part of the Azure framework. And it's based upon the policies we have defined. So it's very easy for a development team to show the incompliances, and it's also very easy to show towards audit department or towards regulator the status about it and how we manage it. The fourth one is issue management. So once there is an incompliancy, then an issue will be automated in a generic way, and then that issue will be stored in the ServiceNow tooling, and that issue will be assigned towards the development team or towards the application, towards the department in which that development team belongs, to which that development team belongs to. So that is handled in an automated way, and then all these issues can be sorted out or based on development team, based on department. So senior management or development teams or IT manager, they always are able to see what kind of issues are applicable for their department. And the fifth one is reporting. I already mentioned about the tower in some earlier sheet. So the tower, they also have access to that reporting, and the tower, they can create all kind of reporting. They can create it on department level, on issue level. This is an example of a lifecycle management report. So here you can see that 19% of the teams do not have not taken care of their lifecycle management. This is sample data, by the way. But the tower, they can create all kind of reporting. This is about lifecycle management, but we also have this kind of reporting for patch management or for anti-malware and for all kind of other stuff. And this kind of report is also presented towards senior management, and based on these kind of reports, our senior management can go back to the right department, to the right teams, saying, hey, you need to do something because you're not compliant. It's a very, because as a bank, we need to manage these kind of things, but as a bank, we also need to show to the regulators that we are in control, and we need to show proof of that. So those kind of dashboards, those kind of reports also will be used towards the regulators to show that we are in control. Now then we move to the DevOps controls. That's the last one. So once a team is moving towards Azure, they need to comply. They need to have that CAP approval, that Cloud Approval Board approval. They need to adhere to the policies. But on top of that, there is also all kind of DevOps controls defined. And they need to show that they can take their DevOps responsibility. Now, all kind of capabilities have been defined, continuous integration, continuous delivery, operations, and you can see the rest. And per capability, a set of requirements have been defined. I will show one example. I will show the continuous integration example. So once a team does do continuous integration, then everything between development and making or producing a deployable artifact, and that is automated. So via Jenkins or via Azure DevOps, we are moving to Azure DevOps, by the way. Pipelines are made. Now teams need to show that they store their application code in a Git tool, and that they do proper versioning. That's the first the first check. The second check is that unit testing needs to be automated to a certain extent. So unit test coverage is a DevOps control. And then three important controls is software quality, secure coding, and open source libraries, the quality of that. So we have all kinds of tools in place to make sure that can help developers to improve the quality of their software. And if there is urgent issues or severe issues in their software, then the build will be blocked, and then the developers need to repair it again before being able to publish a deployable artifact. And secure coding, for example, that is a tool in which you can prevent cross-site scripting or SQL injection issues or dependency scan. And that is a tool in Access Lifecycle that show the vulnerabilities of open source libraries. So probably some of you know the company Equifax. That company has been hacked in the past, and that had lots of loss because of that hack. And that hack occurred because of a vulnerable open source library, because the development team had not upgraded that open source library. So those kind of controls are in place, those kind of checks are in place, and we envision that these controls, these checks are automated. Some of them are manual, or some of them is also copy paste, and screenshots need to be shown. But our vision is that as much as possible automation should be handled. That's a continuous improvement journey. But there's an example of continuous integration, and all kinds of checks are also in place for continuous delivery, for infra as code, for design and programming, for monitoring. So when a development team moves an application towards Azure, these kind of things need to be handled. And also this is used for showing to the regulators that we are in control. So what are the lessons learned? Because we are busy already for 5-6 years on this journey, and we have achieved many things, many good things already, but we also had some setbacks and some learnings. So first learning is governance. So you need to make sure that the right governance is in place, that the right roles are in place, that the first level, the second level, the third level of defense is clearly defined, that people know how to do risk assessments, if a risk need to be accepted, how is that handled, what kind of forms are filled in. This is very important, and you need to define it the right way, but you also need to communicate it in a proper way to make sure that everybody knows it and everybody understands it. So I see also cases that while it's well defined, people are not always aware of it. So communication about it, that's also a very important aspect about this thing. No, the second one is old versus new world, traditional world versus public cloud world. So as said, many of the traditional world rules can be reused, but public cloud has also lots of specific things, and therefore it's important to have a cloud framework. I explained about it, the SCRC. If you move to public cloud, you need to have such kind of framework in place. You cannot rely upon your traditional, upon your on-premise rule set. Learning, very important. So what we see in our departments and our company is that many people they learn about they get their Azure certifications, and they get their CISP certifications, they get their CCSP certifications, but we don't see so many people who take the CISM and the C-Risk certifications, and of course the people working at risk, they will take care of that and audit, but the developers, people dealing with applications or the platform, there is not, that is certainly an improvement item, if you ask me, to improve in that, because majority of the escalations which I receive is based upon the fact that people do not follow the right risk processes. People in CISO or people in my department, they tell application development teams that certain things are not allowed, but instead of saying it's not allowed, they should identify a risk, and the proper governance should be used to decide upon acceptance or mitigation of the risk. So that is certainly something we can improve upon. And then the last one, and that's the most difficult one, it's also about finding the right balance between security, first developer freedom, and increased time to market. As said, we can put everything on deny, we can block everything, but then no single piece of software can be deployed to production. So, and avoiding all risk, it's simply not possible. So we need to find as an organization the right balance between security and developer freedom, and that's also something which is challenging. I think we are continuously improving on that, but that topic causes lots of discussion sometimes within the company. This was my last slide.
Thank you so much. If you can go back to the question slide, so we still have a slide on. Yep, thank you. And we do have a lot of questions. I'm going to kick off with asking the maybe obvious question for me: why Azure and not, for example, any of the other ones?
Sorry?
Is there why the choice of Azure versus, for example, Amazon GCP? I know this is not really like the merits of the question, but it's a good question to ask to start the discussion.
Why not the Mercedes instead of Audi? So I think both Azure, both Amazon are capable of providing the right things we need. But Microsoft Azure, they have more attention towards senior management engagement. So with an Amazon, with AWS, they say you have a service, you can take it or leave it. But Microsoft, they also have more support and more advice for large enterprises organized around it. So, and I think that was the major reason why ABN AMRO has chosen for Microsoft.
Okay.
But as said, Amazon is also, and Google, they're also very good public cloud.
To be honest, this question is coming from me because it's ABN AMRO is a big bank, and the choice of the public cloud itself might have been based on something, insightful for others. That's why I wanted to ask. We do have other questions coming from other people. So basically, does ABN AMRO use both public and private clouds or just public cloud? I assume from your presentation both, but
we have a hybrid situation. So we have an on-premise environment and the public cloud environment. So initially the idea was to move everything to public cloud, but later we found out that it was not as easy as we thought to move things to public cloud. And we also see that there is also applications which simply do not fit to public cloud. So there's commercial to shelf applications, third-party packages. If you move to public cloud, you need to have your application set up in a certain way. Big monoliths. You need to be able to handle with Azure features. And if the application cannot handle that, then you can better stay on premise. And so if you move to public cloud, my advice would be to make a good placement strategy. So to define which applications fit on public cloud or which not. And the second one is also need to take care of the knowledge of the people, of the teams. So we see that if people move to public cloud, so many people think, oh, Microsoft, Amazon, they will take care of the infrastructure. But provisioning the infrastructure and making the right designs, also, you need infrastructure knowledge for that.
I think you answered multiple of the next questions, so I'm going to combine a couple of them, and I want to see if you want to add anything to your answer already. So we had the question: is Azure also allowed for key applications? I think you answered that one because you said you have to go application by application.
But the security controls which are required, they are more rigid than for non-critical applications.
Yep, and also
but there are critical applications running on Azure. Yes.
So also there was a very interesting question. Do you monitor on the successful implementation of soft aspects of your DevOps/Azure journey, such as desired culture and employee behavior? Example, global knowledge sharing, recognizing problems as opportunities for learning, psychological, I would say psychological safety is more about generally the workplace safety, but it still applies since cloud is a new product. People are feeling safe to ask questions, to maybe, admit to their own ignorance. I'll go that far to help you answer that question.
Yeah, no, but that's a very good question. And next to the fact that the people need to have the right knowledge, they also need to have the right attitude. It's all new. They need to learn. They need to make failures. They need to experiment. And they need to take initiative. So the attitude. That is something which is crucial because a lot of knowledge is simply not available. So you need people who have the right talent to learn it, and you need to have people who are willing to learn. So that attitude, that is very important if you want to move to public cloud.
Yep, I have a question regarding the infrastructure as a service components. So basically VMs on public cloud and outbound internet connections from them. Do you advise, since you guys are a bank and also, let's say, strict on security controls, do you advise to have something like a URL filtering platform, maybe a data loss prevention platform in front of all these IaaS components when they go outbound to the internet?
Yeah, so first of all, my advice would be use SaaS or PaaS instead of IaaS, because if you use IaaS, the advantages compared to traditional environment on-premise is not so big, and you need to be even careful because you even might end up in higher costs if you do not manage the right way. Yeah, and data loss prevention, that is also some security control which is in place, especially for applications which contain sensitive data. So we have also data loss prevention mechanisms in place, and for some applications, for some kind of applications, data loss prevention is required. Yep.
Yep, I would like to also combine my question with a couple of other questions from colleagues here. One is about the risk for concentration, that you're concentrating a lot of critical applications on the cloud. And also, the same person was asking about long-term, probably exit strategy if you want to go from one cloud to the other, especially that you mentioned SaaS and PaaS, which are both, let's say, cloud dependent rather than IaaS, where you just take your VMs, for example, and go somewhere else.
Yeah, exit strategy. So our exit strategy, that is basically moving from public cloud towards the on-premise platform, which is not a good exit if you ask me. But while deciding to move to one single cloud, you also accept as a company that your exit strategy is a little bit less important than the advantages of moving to a single cloud. But the exit strategy is indeed on-premise, and in order to manage that, you could have an overarching container framework, and you could use Kubernetes. But I also have to say that while moving to a single cloud, the exit strategy will be more difficult than if you move to a multi-cloud.
Yep, we do have a lot of other questions, Stefan, but I think for the sake of time, we're going to take a couple. So I'm going to try my best to combine as much as possible. Some of them, there was a discussion about if you use CSA Cloud Control Matrix or because I'm combining two questions, if you're using the Microsoft Model Service Management or equivalent framework as a starting point for, let's say, also the control structures.
And what is the question then?
The question is like, do you use the CSA Cloud Control Matrix? That's one of them. Maybe when I combine them, it's not very clear.
I think, but I'm not sure. But I think that the people who have defined the SCRC, that they also have taken into account the CSA framework. I know that there is people with an ABN AMRO who are also part of the CSA. I don't dare to say it with 100% certainty, but I'm 99% sure that they have taken input from the CSA.
Okay, I'll take one last question. What is more important, to show the regulator you are in control or to avoid risk? And where is the most business value? That's a generic question.
Yeah, I think that's dependent upon the data owner, upon what are the objectives of the data owner. Yeah, that is, I think it's a business decision, and for one kind of business, the answer will be different than